Midnight news coming to you live from Algiers with Mehmet Emzian to the headlines. The death toll in Gaza rises to 38,295. Zionist occupation forces commit 4 massacres in 24 hours, and UNRWA chief says Gaza schools are places of misery and death amid ongoing conflict. Also coming up, Algerian President Tebboune pays work in an inspection visit to Tizi Ouzou province, where he inaugurated key development projects. And NATO begins sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomes this step from Washington. At the outset, the Palestinian medical sources said Wednesday that the death toll from the Zionist occupation's aggression on the Gaza Strip has risen to 38,295 martyrs and 88,241 wounded since October 7. The same sources added that the occupation forces committed 4 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, resulting in the martyrdom of 52 Palestinians and the injury of 208 others during the past 24 hours. Thousands of victims are still under the rubble and on the streets, where ambulance and civil defense crews cannot reach them. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, said on Wednesday that schools in Gaza have become places of misery and death. Lazzarini added that Gaza is no longer a safe place for children, stressing that the blatant disregard for international humanitarian law cannot become the new normal. It's worth mentioning also that 4 schools in Gaza have been bombed in the past 4 days, and a third of the agency's schools have been bombed since the start of the Zionist war on the Strip. The Zionist occupation plans to escalate its aggression against the Gaza Strip ahead of any negotiation rounds with Palestinian resistance. Observers suggest this move aims to pressure the resistance into making concessions, while others believe it's a strategy to disrupt potential deals, as the occupation failed to meet its objectives of destroying Hamas and freeing prisoners. Hossein Barkan has more details.
The air is filled with the sound of drone strikes, and artillery bombardment on the Gaza Strip are relentless. The result is dozens of martyrs and wounded, with thousands of displaced individuals desperately searching for a safe refuge. Observers view the widespread of Zionist military escalation across various regions of the Gaza Strip as a form of failed negotiation. The Israeli occupation is seen to be deliberately putting pressure on Hamas, following the movement's acceptance of significant parts of an American ceasefire proposal, which had revived the Palestinian hopes for an agreement.
Revenge is linked to the confrontation and the significant military resistance of the Palestinian forces in the Gaza Strip. It is an attempt to impose certain conditions on the prisoner exchange deal during discussions held in Doha. This pattern has been consistent in all previous negotiation rounds, always organically connected to the negotiations. Additionally, it is an effort to pacify Israeli society, especially the parties and the ruling coalition with Netanyahu.
Caught between disrupting a potential deal and pressuring the resistance to make concessions, Hamas assert that the goal of the new Israeli attack is to derail the talks. Meanwhile, Netanyahu insists that any agreement must not prevent the occupation from achieving its aggressive goals.
كل الدلائل تشير على أن
All indications suggest that Israeli retreats in negotiations and unprecedented concessions signal a lack of new strategies following the invasion of Rafah. The invasion was seen as a chance to gain strong negotiating leverage, which did not materialize. Consequently, Israel decided to return to negotiations, with America requesting that they come back to the negotiating table.
يعودوا إلى طاولة المفاوضات.
This new Israeli offensive occurs as Egypt, Qatar, and the United States intensify mediation efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, aiming to bridge the gap and reconcile differing viewpoints on contentious issues. Observers note that Netanyahu's refusal to grant the Zionist negotiating delegation full authority is an attempt to obstruct a deal until he addresses the U.S. Congress on the 24th of this month.
And over the past 4 days, the Zionist occupation has bombed 4 schools in the Gaza Strip where Palestinians had taken refuge after fleeing indiscriminate Israeli bombing. These attacks resulted in the deaths of at least 73 Palestinians, including women and children, and injured many others. Nabil Khazini has the report.
Crying the loss of this baby, the faces here show a mix of sorrow and confusion about the weight the baby has in all of this. In only 4 days, 4 schools housing Palestinians who were forced to flee their homes were bombed by the occupation army. The once vibrant halls of schools now bear witness to the cruel violence that shattered dozens of innocent lives. Among the 73 dead bodies were women and children.
We were just sitting. Nothing was going on. Everything was normal. People were playing. Others were buying and selling items. We were gathered. There were no sound of planes or anything. There were a group of women and young men over there. And we were just sitting as normal, and suddenly a rocket fell over there. Everyone started running, and I opened the door to the room, and I saw a shrapnel that came through there. I got scared and shut the door and ran.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency says there is no habitable place anymore in Gaza. This is what the occupation forces have left after their assault on Shuja'iyya neighborhood in the east of Gaza City. Destruction for as far as the eye can see.
Last time, in the first invasion, we came here and repaired our houses. And in order to shelter ourselves, we fixed the windows and covered them with plastic sheets. We have returned to Shuja'iyya after 15 days. You can see the destruction. They spared nothing, even trees. There was a lot of greenery in this area. What is the guilt of stones and trees? And what is my guilt as a civilian?
Since the occupation war on Gaza began, more than half of UNRWA's facilities, the vast majority of them schools, have been hit. And as the assault continues, the hope for a ceasefire now looks like a mirage.
The Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor said that the Zionist occupation is expanding its war on the Gaza Strip and is using civilians as a tool of political pressure and blackmail in light of talk of a return to negotiations to reach a truce declaration. The Euromed Monitor indicated in a statement on Wednesday that the occupation army targets displacement centers and their surroundings, carries out mass killings against the displaced and civilians, and continues to prevent the forcible return of the displaced to their places of residence, and continues also to starve and deprive them of water. And Hamas stated that thousands of Palestinians suffering in occupation prisons are enduring the most heinous torture and abuse by a group of human monsters led by the fascist criminal Ben Gvir. In a statement on Wednesday, Hamas highlighted that the horrifying testimonies from released detainees, along with the visible marks of brutal treatment on their bodies, confirmed the severity of the violations and heinous crimes committed in these prisons and detention centers.
The treatment of our prisoners in the occupation prisons far surpasses the brutality experienced by detainees in Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib prisons. This confirms the immortality of the occupation government and its army, showing their complete disregard for international agreements and laws concerning the treatment of prisoners. This criminal behavior by the Nazi-like occupation government necessitates immediate intervention by international community, the International Court of Justice, the United Nations, and its institutions. There must be committees formed to enter these prisons, investigate the violation committed there, and bring the war criminals among the occupation's leaders to international justice, to hold them accountable for these crimes.
Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, stated that Hamas represents the axis of resistance in negotiations with Israel. He emphasized that all resistance axes will align with Hamas's satisfaction and mentioned coordination with Palestinian factions. In his speech during the eulogy for Hezbollah leader Mohammed Nasser, who was killed in a Zionist raid in southern Lebanon, Nasrallah affirmed Hezbollah's decisive commitment to the Al-Aqsa battle, or the Al-Aqsa flood battle. He added that the southern Lebanon front aims to exhaust the enemy's capabilities and stressed the connection between the north and Gaza.
If a ceasefire takes place, our front will cease fire without any discussion, regardless of any agreement, mechanisms, negotiations, or anything. If there is an agreement in Gaza and a ceasefire takes place, what will we do in the south of Lebanon? We will cease fire, like what happened in the previous truce. If there is no agreement and things continue as they are or take other forms, we will then talk.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune paid a work and an inspection visit to Tizi Ouzou on Wednesday, during which he supervised the inauguration and laid the foundation stone for several development and vital projects in the province. Upon his arrival, the Algerian president, who was accompanied by Army General Said Chingrihat, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, was received by local, civil, and military authorities, where he listened to the national anthem and reviewed formations from various forces of the National People's Army, who saluted him. Meanwhile, the children of Tizi Ouzou offered a warm welcome to Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, expressing on behalf of the inhabitants of the province their happiness with the visit.
في ولايتنا المضيافة الولاية التاريخية التي ضحت بالنفس والنفس بالأجل هذا الوطن الغالي. سيد الرئيس، إن حكم أطفى علينا نور وبهجة تملأ الأجواء. نرحب بكم بقلوب مليئة بالحب والوفاء لهذا الوطن، فباب الكيان نفتحه لكم بكل سرور. سيد الرئيس، إن زيارتكم تعني لنا الكثير، فقد زادتنا تشريفا وفخرا واحتراما وتقديرا. كل الحب والتقدير رئيسنا الغالي الذي شرفنا اليوم بهذه الزيارة التي تدفع العمل الدؤوب بما فيه من مصلحة للوطن والمواطن. المجد والخلود لشهداء الأبرار. تحيا الجزائر، تحيا الجزائر. شكرا.
During his work in an inspection visit on Wednesday to the province of Tizi Ouzou, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune was granted a massive popular welcome by the dignitaries and inhabitants of the province.
اش الوينها اش الوين تيقولوا ذا الله عليك مرحبا بك مرحبا بك الله عليك الرئيس
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune inaugurated the Mujahid Hussein Ait Ahmed Stadium in the province of Tizi Ouzou. This modern sports facility has all the necessary equipment carried out in accordance with international standards. The head of the Algerian state, Abdelmajid Tebboune, received a detailed briefing at the Mujahid Stadium named after Hussein Ait Ahmed, which has a capacity of 50,000 spectators. Additionally, the governor of the province presented a comprehensive overview of development indicators in Tizi Ouzou from the year 2020 to 2024. In a statement on the occasion of his visit, President Tebboune confirmed that great efforts were made to speed up the delivery of the Hussein Ait Ahmed Stadium.
أعتقد أن لو ما كانش فيه رجال واقفين أولا في الميدان عمال وشركات وإطارات على رأسهم الوزير وحتى وزير المالية اللي ساهم كثير في تسهيل المهمة لوزارة السكن، ربما كنا ما نقدرش نستلم ملعب مثل هذا، لأن الله غالب يعني نقولها بأسف أنه كان مرتبط بماضي تسيير أليم للبلاد. 14 سنة باش قدرنا ندشنوه بمجهودات جبارة وباستثناءات، فهنيئا للجزائر أولا، هنيئا لولاية تيزي وزو وتستاهل ملعب مثل هذا وأحسن.
President Tebboune congratulated the Algerian GS Kabylie club for benefiting from the stadium, noting that the sports facility will give a new impetus to the club.
هنيئا الفريق العريق جياسكا اللي هي بنفسها ربما هذا الملعب يخليها تنطلق انطلاقة جديدة في مسارها الكروي. هذه الحوافز مثل الملعب وغيرها وحتى الطقم اللي هيسير فيها اليوم، مبروك علينا كلنا إن شاء الله.
In the same context, the Algerian president then went to the field of the Mujahid Hussein Ait Ahmed Stadium, where he shook hands with the former players of the GS Kabylie. Technical and administrative staff of the Algerian GSKB team appreciated the club's benefit from the important sporting edifice Hussein Ahmed Stadium, stressing that the embodied project would contribute to supporting the team and enhancing its potential.
We are very happy with this jewel and this gain for Kabylia region. I have visited several countries and stadiums like this. There are honestly not many. It's a huge achievement that the state has put in the hands of its children. We hope that our children will live up to this gain, whether at the level of our fans, our people and us, the technicians. We have to be up to a pitch like this one. Thanks to the Algerian state for this stadium, all of Kabylia region is happy with it. We are happy with this pitch.
It's a moment that we have been waiting for 20 years. All the more so that this stadium is a piece of art. I can tell you that it's among the best stadiums in Africa, and especially for a club like GSK, which is a great club that deserves this stadium. Thanks to the man and thanks to the Algerian state, this project saw the daylight.
We are proud of the stadium like this one. We admit that Algeria has facilities that can compete with big European countries. Today, we're wondering what the CAF is waiting to award Algeria the organization of the Africa Cup of Nations. Because when we see these facilities, we know that we can do better. But these facilities remain always for the benefit of the Algerian youth. The President of the Republic built them for the youth. And this stadium will benefit the GSK team and even the national team.
President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, laid the foundation stone for the construction of a new 500-bed hospital in Tizi Ouzou, highly awaited by the population of Tizi Ouzou. The new hospital will allow meeting the needs of the inhabitants in terms of quality care and research development. And NATO member states announced during a summit of its leaders in Washington that they have begun sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Wednesday that the first batch of American-made F-16 fighter jets is already being transported to Ukraine from Denmark and the Netherlands, and that they will fly over Ukraine this summer.
Those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine, effectively defend itself against the Russian aggression. Air defense systems, we know, have been
NATO leaders are celebrating the alliance's 75th anniversary in Washington amid significant challenges. These include the ongoing war in Ukraine, election results in several European countries, reshaping the political landscape, and fears of former U.S. President Donald Trump's potential return, given his negative stance on NATO. Marwa Belhawar has more details.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in Washington will be subdued despite the addition of new members, Sweden and Finland, on its 75th anniversary. Overwhelming concerns dominate. Notably, the war in Ukraine, confronting Russia, containing the Chinese threat, and defense spending, which are the primary topics for the leaders of the alliance's 32 countries.
At the summit, we'll make decisions to further strengthen our support to Ukraine, and Russia must understand that they're not able to wait those out. They need to sit down and accept a solution where Ukraine prevails as a sovereign, independent nation.
European leaders are grappling with election results reshaping the political landscape in France, Britain, Germany and Belgium. Fears of a strategic crisis for European security are rising, particularly if Washington's commitment to NATO, which it funds by 60%, wavers with a potential Trump return. This situation echoes former President George H. Bush's distancing from permanent foreign alliances. Negative sentiments towards NATO are growing on both sides of the Atlantic, fueled by the ongoing war in Ukraine,
which is by and large kept for nearly 80 years and counting. Terrorist groups continue to plot evil schemes to cause mayhem and chaos and suffering. In Europe, Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, and Putin wants nothing less than Ukraine's total subjugation. But make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
Despite NATO's apparent unity and strong support for Kiev, the ongoing war in Ukraine, now in its third year, presents new challenges. Leaders face significant disagreements over the definition of victory, the end of the war, and the purpose of European support, which appears weakened despite substantial aid. The situation is further complicated by the Hungarian Prime Minister's demands for Ukraine to accept a ceasefire with Russia on terms unacceptable to Kiev and unwelcome to Europe.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thank you for watching and have a good night.